Alexander Stein.
Hello, my name is Alexander Stein, and I'm calling from Highland Park. And the reason I'm here today is we need to take a page, Mayor Johnson, out of New York's book, and we got to mandate vaccines, because right now I am losing housekeepers left and right. Because listen, every time the service sends a housekeeper to my house and they test positive for coronavirus, I can't have them work around my kids. I have 2 trans kids in my house, both on puberty blockers, and you realize they are vulnerable. They're immunocompromised. We need more people vaccinated. I voted for Joe Biden, so I'm happy that we're getting more migration to Dallas. But until we mandate these vaccines, we're going to continue to get people sick. We have to get creative. In New York, they're giving $100 plus a free hamburger. Here in Dallas, maybe in the urban centers, we give free KFC. We give free tacos in the Latin markets, because the Latin markets, I'm telling you, I've had multiple housekeepers die from the Delta variant. And that is so hard on my children, Decca and Dalix, because what a 9-year-old, when they lose their favorite housekeeper and they lose that pupusa recipe, when the service sends the next worker, that housekeeper doesn't make the same recipe. So my kids are going through just a total turmoil. So we have to get creative, and we have to go into the gay community, like a creative idea. Since you're the first openly gay mayor of Dallas, we ought to do Mayor Johnson's free Johnson & Johnson, because the gay community would like the double entendre. And then we could also do like a drag queen story time, where we could have, free vaccines. We could have drag queens reading to children. And then we could just have this, open air market of cleanliness, and not a bunch of people with germs. Because what's happening now is we have Governor Abbott, who is going to make it that everybody's going to get sick and die of Delta unless we get these vaccines. And my vaccine won't work unless you are vaccinated. So we need to stick needles in arms. We need vaccine mandates. You shouldn't be able to shop. You shouldn't be able to work. And you shouldn't be able to go to any of these sports games, especially Texas high school football, without your vaccination. And we need you. Being a gay icon like yourself in the gay community, we need you, Mayor Johnson, to offer this, because we cannot protect these people without the vaccine. Not enough people are getting it, and now everybody that doesn't have the vaccine is making me sick. I don't deserve to be sick. I followed the rules. I'm doing everything right. And until you make vaccines mandatory, I'm going to keep on losing housekeepers left and right. And I just can't do that, because that is so hard on my family. It's not fair to my family. So until vaccines are mandated, we're going to keep on having people get sick. We're going to keep on having people die. And I'm telling you, it's easier to get my 9 and 11-year-old on puberty blockers than it is to give them a COVID-19 vaccine. We have to make it okay for 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds to get vaccinated. We need more vaccines now. Vaccines are the way out of this. And until you make it so we can't live in this society without a vaccine, you're going to have all these people with their fake vaccine cards and their anti-maskers like Governor Abbott ruining everything for us. And let me tell you something. I'm not going to stand here and just let everybody live their life while I got my vaccine. And I was sick for 2 weeks after my vaccine, and I did it because that is for the greater good. And sadly, we have a bunch of people that aren't willing to mandate these vaccines. So we have a bunch of cheaters. So please, Mayor Johnson & Johnson's free Johnson & Johnson.
Your time is up.
Do it in Cedar Springs.
Thank you. Karen Hughes.
It's Lucy and Jeff going for walks and talk about banksters and Bitcoin and the apocalypse and stuff. It's Lucy and Jeff and tacos and kisses.
How you doing today, Lucy? Oh, pretty good. Just going for my walk real quick because it looks like it might rain. So thought I'd go for my walk and then eat my tacos and give my kisses. It does look like it might rain, Lucy, so try to get through this. I'd like to thank Alexander Television for that intro. Just if you didn't know, it was totally like a spoof or a sarcastic, or it wasn't real. The sad thing about it was that I think your average person who watched that would just assume it was all real, because that's how a lot of people act and talk. And it was a Dallas City Council meeting, and man, these government people, like I would never hire any of these people ever for a private business. They're always the worst of the worst. They're the dumbest of the dumb. That's why they go to work for the government. So the woman, she's just like, next is Alexander, and then he's done. And if I was watching it, if I was her, I obviously wouldn't be. I wouldn't be running a city council meeting, but if I was her, I'd be laughing a lot and just going at the end, like that was just a troll, right? Just want to make sure. But no, she was like, thank you, mute them, next comment, just hates their life, hates people, hates everything. And that pretty much embodies everything about government. It's a very anti-human thing. It's a very, obviously, horrible and evil thing, because the whole thing it does is extort people and use violence and extortion and kidnapping to make people do things that they want. But, you know, a lot of people, democracy, yeah. So this entire video is pretty much on one topic, which we rarely ever do. But I thought it was a pretty amazing topic. So it was like last week, and all of a sudden, like out of the blue, with no warning whatsoever, in Canada there's a province called Alberta. It's right by British Columbia. It's on the west side. It's basically near the Rocky Mountains. And that's where I was born, a place called Edmonton, Canada. And I still pay a little bit of attention to it only because I'm still a fan of the hockey team. And so I still go to the Edmonton Journal, which is their top newspaper, which no one cares about, no one reads. Like their YouTube channel gets like 50 views half the time. Like it's just like, it's so typical of Alberta. It's just everything there is so lame. And I'll get into that actually, that like just no one even cares. But I was shocked because I've been kind of like, when I go to this newspaper site to read the hockey stuff, I see all the COVID's crap, and it's just been nonstop, and they've been hardcore on it since day one with this, her name's Dina Hinshaw, I think. It's like the most, just like that city council person, it's like the most robotic, dead eyes, dead soul, like typical commie, just like, we're gonna play some of her in this video. You'll see what I mean. Like, tell me if you would hire her to even like wash your car. I'm not hiring this person. This person is like brain dead, typical government person. She's the health minister in Alberta. So anyway, what happened was, out of the blue, no expectations of anything, all of a sudden I read that Alberta has just like instantly dropped everything to do with the COVIDs. Basically, they're like, no more contract tracing, which is crazy and ridiculous. No more, you have to wear masks, which is crazy and ridiculous. It's all crazy and ridiculous, but they said everything. They're like, we're not doing anything anymore. And I was like, how did this happen? Because Dina Hinshaw, like she's all about it. She's been loving the last, got a house alarm going off here. She's been loving the last year and a half. Like she's been so famous. I'm gonna get into that. And it's all, a lot of the old people in Alberta watch it like every day, her like press conference. And she's like, comes up with her dead eyes and she's with her bob haircut and she's all gray. Everything about her is gray, which is actually pretty normal for Edmonton because there's like barely any sun. It's usually like minus 40 most of the time. And, what was I talking about? What are we talking about? See, we talk about how, I don't know. I'm like getting tired of all this stuff, but this was actually good stuff. So she'd been having her press conferences for like a year and a half, and they're just the most dead things. And they've been putting on YouTube. It gets like 500 views, and they turn off the likes and up likes or downvotes for every single one because you know what would happen, right? And they usually turn off the comments. I think that started when I started commenting on it like a year and a half ago. And then comments off ever since then. And so she's been all about it. Like this is her, wow. And a lot of this, some people in Alberta consider her like Dr. Fauci, right? They get tattoos of her and stuff, which is so hilarious. But anyway, she comes out and she's like, yeah, there's nothing. The Alberta premier comes out. He's like, yeah, we're not doing anything anymore. We're basically considering it like the flu, which is basically what it is. But you know, it's government. It takes them a year and a half to figure it out. But here's the key. They didn't actually figure it out. They were forced to do this. And how it was done, I actually didn't think was possible because I thought they have enough people in every single government and every judge of every court to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen. But again, I have to say, Alberta's like a backwater. It's kind of like, you know, everybody kind of knows each other. There's not that many people. It's, most people just work, everyone drives a pickup truck, and most people work in the oil business, and everyone's a hockey fan. That's basically Alberta. Not very many smart people, like in general. Like they're just just middle of the road, basic sort of people. Nothing very interesting about most of them. I forget why I brought that up. I'm losing my train of thought a lot, Lizzie. Why did I bring up why it's so boring? Oh, yeah, so now I remember. Oh, didn't see the car coming. Where are you, Lucy? Lucy, you alive? Where are you? I don't see her. Oh, there she is, I think. Is that her? Is that you, Lucy? Oh yeah, there she is. She's so small, you can barely see her. So anyway, again, I think maybe this happened. I'm gonna get into what happened. In case you don't know, you're probably like, what's he talking about? Get to the point, motherfucker. If it's on bitchy, it's like, he loves the Jews. That's why he's not getting to the point. Yeah, fuck off. But, so it's, you know, I've said this before. The Jesuits, the Freemasons, all of them, they've got really good control of like the federal government of the US and the federal government in Canada and most federal governments, France, UK, you name it. They got it locked down. But once you get outside of those areas, you get into other countries like Burundi or Tanzania. Those president guys aren't like controlled 100% by the Jesuits or the Freemasons because they don't really care about those places. It's like Alberta. It's like, whatever, who cares? It's not a big deal. Like, do you know where Burundi is? I don't. I know it's in Africa. That's about all I know. So I think in the smaller places, you have a chance that these things can happen. These things can also maybe happen in places like Texas and Florida a little bit, but not on the national level. When you talk national in the US, it's fully controlled, pretty much. So my point is, I think this got through because the Alberta government is just like most things in Alberta. There's nothing special. There's no real need to really control them all that much. Like it's just like so nondescript, everything there. And so the amazing Jesuits, they don't have like time for to control every little part of the world, right? So they probably didn't really nail down Alberta that much. They didn't own every judge yet. They're probably working on it, but they haven't yet. Maybe they don't even own the premier. That can happen. You can get through, but it's very rare, and they'll usually kill you. Ask the ex-presidents of Burundi or Tanzania, who they killed because they didn't go along with the COVID's pandemic hoax. So, long introduction, but a guy named Patrick King went to court because I think he got a ticket. Watch out, Lisa, we got a car coming here. Hang on, I'm just gonna make sure she sees the car. There she is, yeah. I see him, yeah. No problem, no problem. And so he goes to a court, and actually I'll let him kind of explain it here. So this is the first interview I saw with him. It was with a show called Stu Peters, and he basically explains what happened.
Joining us now is Patrick King, a devoted father of two, a proud Canadian. You were fined $1,200 for violating the COVID-19 Public Health Act for being in a group larger than 10, which I'm assuming is what lit the fire inside of you. And it appears that you, sir, were a part of the efforts that we can now celebrate today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, Stu. Yeah, on December 5th, we held a rally. So in Red Deer, Alberta, Canada, we have been known as the only city in Canada to hold the longest rally against all these government mandates that they've been putting in with regards to even our industries. I started back about 4 years ago. I'm an oil and gas worker, have been for over 17 years. I also hold a degree in occupational health and safety and environment. And when they started to attack our industry out here, I started getting a little bit more vocal. So we've held rallies on our streets with regards to oil and gas and this government that we have for over 3.5 years. And on December 5th, we were celebrating our 200th week of being on the corner on a Saturday morning protesting. And on that particular day, COVID mandates were implemented and they were going on for the last little while. And I was obviously targeted because of my voice, and I know this, and it's in the transcripts in the court. I was targeted, and I received a ticket of $1,200. So I waited for my time in court. I ended up getting it on May the 4th, finally, and I went into court, and I produced some information that I needed to request in order to put up a good, plausible defense. And my material that I requested was the isolation of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and I wanted it isolated and not in a lab setting or in a PCR test, because we know the PCR tests, they're overspun. We know we're not stupid people. Right. We know, we research, we look.
Yes.
So in doing that, they kind of shut me out of the court. I was supposed to be in court on May the 18th. All of a sudden once I deliver all of this, and I get told as a self-representative, the judge has to advocate for me and steer me in the right direction, at which time she allowed me to subpoena Dina Hinshaw, who is our chief medical officer of health for Alberta, who basically what my defense was to be was I needed proof that you have isolated the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and that therefore the science would give you the backing for your public health act.
Which in plain and simple terms means prove to me that a pandemic exists. Prove to me that we're all going to die. Prove to me that this thing is raging out of control and that people are dying from this thing.
100%. And if they did that, then I would be no problem. I would say, okay, you're right. You've got this. I'll put this mask on. Well, as soon as I subpoenaed her, I got an officer shows up at my door 3 days later. He says, Mr. King, I need your address. I said, oh, you mean the address you're at right now? That address? Yeah, well, I need your email address. And I said, well, the same email address that's on all my correspondence with you guys and all this stuff? You already have it. Well, I need your telephone number. I said, you mean the telephone number that you call me on all the time? And he's kind of looking dumb. And he says, well, I'm just here to tell you that your court case has been canceled. I was like, this can't happen. You can't cancel my court case. And he kind of snickered. Well, I ended up calling the courthouse, got it rescheduled. And upon the rescheduling, I got it in. And next thing I know, I'm being subpoenaed by Dina Hinshaw's lawyers now on a Sunday morning at 11:53 in the morning. I timestamped process server serving me this. In less than 24 hours, I had to be in behind closed chambers with Dina Hinshaw's lawyers and the judges. And I'm like, okay, well, this is odd. This is what's called a procedural violation. You cannot service somebody a subpoena less than 24 hours before court. And I knew they were up to something dirty. When I got the subpoena, we went into court. I get into court the next day. I call procedural violation 100%. They said, yes, it's a procedural violation. I said, okay, Your Honor, well, let's adjourn it to Wednesday. And this would have been July 24th. And I would have been in court. And she says, no, we can't. I said, Your Honor, this is a procedural violation. And well, when that happened, Dina Hinshaw's lawyer spoke up. And she said, well, Your Honor, Mr. King is requesting evidence that we cannot give. And I was kind of like, what? And I sent you a screenshot of it. And in the screenshot, it says, the chief medical officer of health has no material evidence to provide Mr. King for his defense, which basically means everything that I requested in Schedule A, which is the isolation of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, that needs to be 100% isolated in order to base your scientific facts on these public health acts. You don't have material evidence for this. And they said no. And I had to reiterate again to the lawyer or to the judge. I said, Your Honor, just for the record, I want it to be on the record, duly noted, that the Chief Medical Officer of Health of Alberta does not have material evidence I request. She says, yes, Mr. King, they did say that. Perfect. I lose the subpoena on Dina Hinshaw. That's okay, because what had happened is a procedural violation. Now, what they've done is the court system actually bamboozled me and sent me in the wrong direction, which is a violation of my rights as a Canadian citizen. I go in on the 24th, and I couldn't believe it. There are attorney general prosecutors from Ottawa in the courtroom. And now my statement says, no longer does it say Dina Hinshaw versus Patrick King. It states the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen versus Patrick King. So now, where's my accuser? If the Queen is my accuser, I get to address my accuser. Well, lo and behold, they find out that everything I did is absolutely phenomenal. They can't believe it. I'll still remember the look on the faces. So I reiterate it again. The Chief Medical Officer of Health of Alberta, Ms. Dina Hinshaw, and AHS and the Alberta provincial government do not have the material evidence I request for the isolation of SARS-CoV-2. And when the judge said that, these two stenographers, or a stenographer and a clerk, just went like this.
Yeah.
And their jaws dropped to the floor.
Yeah, they must have looked at the judge like, what, are we supposed to type this?
Yeah.
Do you really want this on the record? I mean, this is amazing stuff. And it's so simple when you think about it. This is so simple. You have essentially taught the world exactly what they need to do to liberate themselves. I mean,
that's right.
So to kind of paraphrase what I took or understood of what happened, he gets like a ticket, he goes in, he says, hey, you gave me a ticket because of COVID's laws. Prove you even, like, it exists. Prove it exists. And he said it better than me because he was actually going through it, but what I understood was that they're like, they changed everything right after that. They got called in, all these big time lawyers came in, and all of a sudden it wasn't Dina Hinshaw or the province of Alberta that was on the complaint, it was the Queen. Oh, the Queen, oh, she never stops. So she's the one behind all this. Of course, she and the Masons and the Jesuits and the New World Order and the Illuminati, all those guys. The Jews too, to make everyone happy on BitChute, but they're not even Jews. It's the Rothschilds, the Khazarian sort of people. They use the Jews for the most part. Anyway, so I can't wait to read the BitChute comments on that. And oh, believe me, I'm going to read them all. Yeah. But yeah, so that all changed. And then, if I understood correctly again, they said, we can't show evidence exists. And basically that was the end of it. And they're like, okay, so get out of here. And then, and this is the amazing part, this is the part that I didn't think was this easy to do. And this is like a big, very positive thing for everyone out there. Like, I'm gonna mention this throughout the video. Do these things in your area. Like, the biggest problem that people like us have, and if you're watching this video, I presume you kind of agree with me on most things I'm talking about. You think there's a lot of problems, you want to get rid of a lot of the problems, but no one ever does anything. And so many things are so easy, like just sharing a video, liking a post, you know, like so it gets viewed by other people, if you like it, right? But people won't even do that. And they're like, I don't know why this world never gets better. It's like, because you never do anything. You got to do something. And this guy didn't even do all that much, but he did a fair amount. And he just, you know, took it to court and said, prove you have what the COVID exists. And if everyone did that, and we're going to get into this, by the way, near the end. And if every single person watching this, we get about 50,000 views per video. I get 50,000, huh? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. How many chihuahuas? I got a few chihuahuas, Lucy. I keep getting like fan mail with people showing me their chihuahuas saying they're a fan of yours. Well, that sounds pretty good, pretty good. I got another car coming here. So, there we go. I think my camera's broken. There we go. So, yeah, so so we got 50,000 people. If every single person did something, like one or two things, right? Like the video, shared it, or just like disputed one of these tickets and wherever you live, right? That'd be like tens of thousands of people doing that. It would overload their systems. We'd see like things changing overnight. They wouldn't really know how to handle it. They'd probably spark off like a massive new war or something just to take everyone's attention off of it, right? But we do have the power, and this guy really showed it. He was just, it's amazing, like he's such a typical guy, and not to talk down about people in Alberta too much, I already have a little bit, but they're very they're very average sort of people, and this guy's like the most average kind of guy. Like he's like everybody in Edmonton that I know. Like they're all like him. No offense to him, like I think he's actually kind of a hero here. I'm just saying, he doesn't look like anything too special. He doesn't talk like all that eloquently or anything. He's just a guy who lives in Edmonton and doesn't like the COVID's tickets. And So like, it's amazing, like anyone can do it, and this guy really did, and it's just amazing. So basically, they came back and they said, yeah, we have no material evidence that COVID exists, which actually we've known from other places before, but this is just another instance. The thing with this one is, days later, they removed all restrictions because they realized they were going to be liable for all this stuff. So that's the amazing part. So, but they also admitted they don't have any evidence of the COVIDs, which is no surprise to me. I've been saying for a year and a half, it doesn't exist. The what do they call it? The SARS-CoV-2, whatever. It's just a bunch of letters and numbers in a genetic sequence that they say they find in people's blood, even though the people usually feel fine, and that's the CoV-2. But even that, they've never been able to show that those sequence of letters out of 1 trillion letters in your body kills anybody. But they just admitted the very obvious, clear truth that there's zero evidence that it exists. And not only that, there's nothing that they do with their tests or anything that show it exists. It's a complete and total fraud. Or you could say, these people are so stupid on every level that they just made a huge mistake. But you know what? They do this mistake over and over and over decades and decades and decades, and we see how they plan it all. So it's not just a big mistake. People like Dina Hinshaw is obviously a total moron, but the people planning this stuff, they're not. They actually do this on purpose. But the point is, they came out, the hell people in Alberta, and said, we have no material evidence that it exists. Fact, science demands that theories be tested and supported by evidence. And Beth Martins, who's a friend of mine, she's been on my show Anarchast, I believe. I think she spoke at Anarchapulco the last couple years. She does some great stuff. If you don't know her, definitely sign up to her BitChute, or I think she's even still on YouTube. And she interviewed Patrick King as well. And here's some of that.
In a Canadian court system, you have lawyers who work with prosecutors, and they work together as a team. And anytime a man who's trying to keep me, or a man or a woman who is trying to keep me out of jail, and looks at the person that's trying to put me in jail and says to them, my friend and I have talked, my friend and I have agreed, I'm not going to dance that dance because there's no way you're his friend. I pay you a lot of money. That guy is your worst sworn enemy. That's what I pay you for. So I opted out of doing lawyers, and I did it myself under self-representation. My own son was a victim of the needle. My own son took the jab, and that's his right. I don't hate him. I love him to death. But I was asking, son, Dad knows a few more things than you do. I know you're only 17. I love you to death, and I get it. And he does. He has a golden opportunity to travel overseas to go to university, and he's fighting strong for that. But at the same time, I look at it going, he kind of jumped the gun on it, and now this became very personal for me. I was actually banned off all of social media platforms for medical misinformation because I helped businesses stay open in Alberta. I helped file these documents with other people. Pardon me. And I actually got banned from social media because of it. The most scariest enemy you want is somebody who has nothing to lose. And the downfall as well is they took 2 of my best friends away from me due to death by suicide because of this. My best friends. And I mean my best friends.
Wow.
These were my ride or die Harley Davidson group of people. They're gone. They're no longer here anymore.
So sorry for your losses.
Now they went for my son. And that's it. I'm done. And I will fight them tooth and nail. And I will do everything at my disposal to expose everything that they've done. And I openly said that in my closing remarks. You've educated me more than any university education I've ever looked for or needed. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to be the loudest, the proudest activist in Canada, and I'm going to teach every single person what they need to do. I'm just a guy. I'm a guy that made, a huge splash in the pond, but it's not going to, don't put your faith in me. Put your faith in yourself because you're the only one. And at the end of the day, you're the only one who's going to ever save yourself. I'm just happy to be the guy that can kind of help and direct some people in the right direction. what has happened after this is what is the most profound thing that I've ever seen. For a CMOH to rescind all their mandates immediately and then to start retracting people's tickets, this is huge. And you know we got them. Everybody's got this. And I really hope that this helps one person. I really hope this asks people to stand up and stand up and use your voice. You've been given an opportunity by the Creator. That opportunity is for you to exercise your voice, to exercise your rights as a human being on this planet, and to always leave something better for your children when you go and move on. And at least I can go to bed every night soundly, and I can sleep at night knowing I'm doing what I feel in my heart, which I know, not that I feel, I know in my heart that we are setting up the world and our children and our grandchildren for success and not failure.
So that's all pretty cool. Some of the cool parts are how he's like, I got nothing to lose. You don't want to fight with me? And how he's going to be the loudest and proudest activist in Canada. And he's going to teach every single person what they need to do. That's very cool. Like, this guy's awesome. We need way more people like that. But like, he's really set the precedent here. And we're going to get into a few details on it in a bit, about how actually his court case, he ended up losing it on a what do they call those? He didn't dot an I or something on the thing. Anyway, we'll get into that. But this really sets a precedent. So if you live somewhere and you really don't like what's going on, we're going to have all the info in this. Check out Patrick King. He says he's giving everyone all the info that he used, and go and do it whatever area you're in, whether it's Australia or wherever. You should be aware there is some risk. But like I've said before, no one ever takes any risks. This isn't going to go very well. But of course, Patrick King has been basically banned off of social media. Of course he has. No surprise at all. So he does this. They basically say they don't have any evidence of the COVIDs. A few days later, they drop everything in Alberta. So it almost turned into like Florida, basically. There's no restrictions on anything. They're not even looking at it. They're not tracking it. And again, it's like just amazing how quickly this all happened. That's, you know, when you start putting pressure on them and saying you're going to go to jail for what you're doing, these people run like cockroaches. So here's Dina Hinshaw, and I warned you before, she's tough to watch. And like, it's funny too, I'm going to get into what she talks about here, but it's just stupid what she says. But basically what she's saying is they're not going to do any of this stuff anymore, but she doesn't even give any good reasons for it.
We need to remember that the measures that we've needed to use for COVID are extraordinary measures, and they were absolutely justified when COVID-19, again, at a provincial level, was an extraordinary risk of overwhelming the system. The thing we're really trying to grapple with, and we're not unique in this is a question of timing. Every jurisdiction in the world is going to have to grapple with how do we learn to live with COVID, and we simply can't sustain our current structures. So the question isn't whether or not we make this change. The question is when we make this change. And again, I from discussions with my colleagues, I think that there's consensus on that point. So in terms of knowing how to respond and what to do, we will continue to be testing in locations where there's high risk. So for example, continuing care will continue to have testing programs in those locations. We'll continue to have primary care surveillance. So we have physicians, family doctors across the province who submit samples, who've done so for influenza for many years. We can build on that program and expand. So we have sentinel surveillance across the province. We'll be getting samples from clinical testing for people who need that testing to inform their care. And as I mentioned, the wastewater surveillance is a really important baseline that helps us monitor those trends over time.
The science is settled. The science changed. Pick one. So as I mentioned, the only reason I know this person even exists is because I keep checking out this YouTube channel which has some pretty good hockey content. The content. The guys are total brainwashed slaves in like regular life. Like one of them I think they both got their vaccines. They're telling everyone to get their vaccines, all that kind of stuff. I just obviously mute during those sections. I'm like, just talk about hockey, please. And but I have to go to the YouTube channel for the Edmonton Journal newspaper, which is where that Dina Hinshaw video was posted. And as you can see, like I was talking earlier about how just boring and like nondescript Edmonton, Canada, or Alberta is. Like, it's just like so boring. Like, here's a good example. So you go to the Edmonton Journal's YouTube video site, and the top video is actually a hockey video, which is the only reason I go there. So Darnell Nurse signed a $9 million contract as a defenseman. I'll probably watch that later. That's actually good content. But here's the second thing listed. This is a video. New 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limits take effect for most Edmonton residential and downtown streets with 1,000 views. This is like top news in Edmonton, Canada. And then, like I've been saying, it's been non-stop COVID stuff for like a year and a half. And here's the video that we just showed. Hinshaw says Alberta needs to learn with the COVIDs, which is a total flip-flop from everything she said for the last year and a half. And here's another good thing. The video actually has a lot of views because it started getting a lot of attention from what Patrick King was doing. So it actually it's probably the most watched video in the Edmonton Journal's history. 26,000 views. It has 630 likes and 245 dislikes. So they actually allowed the dislike to be shown, and they allowed the comments, which is very interesting. I'm a little confused by this, but there's a lot of great comments in there. Like Jean Guy, Rubber Boot. LOL, they got sued. Don't believe she wants this. She has no choice anymore. She's running scared. Let the investigations begin. But then you see comments like this one. Don't forget to get the word out about the rallies in Calgary. McDougall Center, noon every day. Edmonton Legislature, noon every day. Red Deer, sorry, I have no address. There were too few bodies out today. We need folks to tell Hinshaw, Kenny, Shandro. They cannot do this to our kids. So that's a brainwashed television zombie, and he's basically saying that they got to get out and protest. That they're lifting the restrictions so you can go out in public and do whatever you want anymore. You can go out on the streets without a mask. So what are these people going to do? They're all going to go out on the streets to protest that they shouldn't be allowed out on the streets. Yes, this is the product of our college systems and well, I shouldn't say our, it's not mine. Of the college systems and the government indoctrination camps. It's like, they're going to allow everyone on the street. Let's get in the streets and protest. Some really great stuff about that was, whoever this person was, his name is Beatsy, obviously some just brainwashed zombie. It's like, there was too few people out. It's like, good. Like, there's actually, you could see a shift happening. It took a year and a half, but it's finally starting to happen. Because I remember reading a lot of these comments on like the Edmonton Journal before they turned off the comments, like a year ago, and almost everyone was in favor of it all. Like almost everybody. But now, like finally, people are finally starting to wake up. So this could be like an avalanche, especially if you guys watching this video, yes, you have to do something. Go and just, if you got a ticket or know someone got a ticket, go and file, prove COVID exists. And if the same thing happens, maybe your state or your city or whatever, the next day will drop everything. Like we could do this everywhere, like overnight. But you know what's gonna happen? You're gonna watch this video, you're gonna go, that's great. Lucy's such a cutie. Really like the content. I don't pay anything for it and don't really do anything for it. But anyway, I'm just gonna go masturbate and play some video games now. It's like, okay, you can do that. But it'd be better if you did something. But here's from the Calgary Herald. How did Dr. Dina Hinshaw, Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Hell, get transformed from nearly every Albertan's golden girl of COVID's care to a pandemic pariah at the speed of a Twitter pylon? In short, she announced the loosening of restrictions. It appears many people just can't let go of the fear-mongering. What's ironic is many of these profane pundits are the very same people who repeatedly admonished all others to rightly listen to the experts and follow the science. Indeed, even Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi, who not so long ago was singing Hinshaw's praises and wearing a "What Would Dr. Hinshaw Do" t-shirt, seemed to have turned on Hinshaw, saying he was freaking out and called the elimination of almost all health restrictions related to COVID's by the end of the month the height of insanity. So that was in a Calgary newspaper, so that's very good too. So a lot of people are waking up in Alberta, so that's great. In Ontario, I think they're still basically locked down. I think all restaurants are still closed in Toronto. It's been like that for like almost 2 years. But I guess no one in Ontario has gone and disputed a ticket and said, prove the COVID exists. Maybe that would happen in Ontario too. So get out there and do it. But yeah, so I didn't realize that this Hinshaw thing had so many fans. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Like Dr. Fauci's got his cult following. Anyone who's on the television programming, because it is hypnosis. They basically get into a trance. They see this person every day. And a lot of people are just like this. They're like, I'm a big fan now. I'm gonna get a Hinshaw t-shirt. And there's been all this stuff like Alberta cares with Hinshaw with their plastic gloves on. And here's one. Artist designs inspirational tribute to Alberta's top doctor, Our Lady Hinshaw. Somebody sent me an email asking me if I'd be open to tattooing the design on them. Oh my God. They were even selling Our Lady of Reason vigil candles. Saint Hinshaw, Our Lady of Reason. Yeah, it just goes to show, like, everyone's different, right? Like, I think this hag is one of the most horrific things I've ever seen in my life. She looks like a brain-dead zombie. Everything she says is moronic. But to some people, she's beautiful and she's so eloquent and she's so strong and smart. So much so that they're getting like tattoos of her, just like they're doing with Fauci. So here's one really angry person though. I wonder what those folks who got Dina Hinshaw tattoos 18 months ago think of her now. And then another person responds, my wife bought this print of her, which is hanging in her front hall. I want to burn it every time I walk by it now. Wait, she bought that print? Like, 3-year-old kids could do a better rendering of Dina Hinshaw. Not to mention it has way too much color. It needs to be all gray. But these people, because they're, you know, cult followers, cult worshippers of the whole system, right? Are so angry. They're actually thinking about taking down their print of Dina Hinshaw now out of their house. Like I said, to each his own, because I would never in a million years have any print, much less that print, of Dina Hinshaw in my house. And if I did, I would say every day as I walk by it, I want to burn it every time I walk by it now, like that guy, but for exact opposite reasons. Yeah, I said so many times over the years in these videos, like that you, and I'm not joking, you can change the world dramatically. Like, that's what it takes. The biggest problem is that most people don't do anything and think they can't really do anything. Well, this guy, Patrick King, has proved that just a regular guy can change things dramatically. And all he did was just ask one question. Can you prove COVID exists? And they all start running. So there's lots of unlikely heroes out there. You know, there's been others in Canada, like Chris Sky, videoed himself just walking right past the cops in the airport as everyone lines up to go to the concentration camps. He's like, you can't do this, it's illegal. And they're like, we know, but don't tell anyone. And yeah, so just, you know, like if everyone would just, like if you really care, right? And I see so many people over the years saying how much they care about this stuff and they wish that there'd be some sort of change for the better. It starts with you. It always does. And you'd be amazed. Like even Dina Hinshaw's YouTube comments got turned off because of me. I just posted, you are a vile communist, tyrannical dictator who knows nothing about, you know, whatever. All comments turned off. That was just me. I did that in like 10 seconds. I type very fast. And yeah, just little things like that. Like, really just, like, if you really want to do some things, just try to like take 1 or 2 hours per week and just set it aside to do something active. Share posts or write letters or file court stuff if you're into that kind of stuff or whatever. Just, that's all it takes. And like I said, if like tens of thousands of people did it, we just like overwhelm their system. It'd be great. And you know, most things with the government, it's like a facade completely. And like, they look like they have a lot of power, and in certain ways they do, but if enough people don't believe their power is legitimate and don't listen to them, it's over like instantly. Like every riot that ever happens, once there's way more people than there is riot cops are out of there. And it just takes people getting involved. And I think if you're in an area like Australia or Ontario, or where else is really bad right now? California, maybe, California, just do stuff like this. Maybe not that exactly, but stuff like that. That's all it takes. There's a lot of unlikely heroes. Who you could be will surprise you. So as I mentioned, we're gonna have a bunch of links down below if you want to do this, and I highly recommend you do. Like, I'd love it if in my next few videos I'm like, yeah, most of the restrictions almost everywhere in the world just went away this week from people who watched this video and got these information and filed in their own area. So down below we'll have links to Patrick King's court case documents, the letter to him, the law relied on by the applicant, affidavits, and originating application, and the full real court transcript. Oh, and I should point out, I've heard a number of people right off the bat go, this is a psyop. And you know, it could be, anything could be. They do tons of psyops. But I found this more and more with people that kind of in my sort of circles, that everything turns out to be such lies that as soon as anything happens, they just assume it's all a fraud. It doesn't necessarily have to be. That's another thing that, you know, like, I think some people said that probably because how could one guy make them remove all the restrictions in one day? I think it is possible. I don't think this is a psyop from what I see. And this guy does not seem like your typical, in Canada the CIA is called CSIS. He doesn't seem like your typical CSIS guy. He seems like just your regular guy that he probably went to my high school. That's what they all look and sound like and talk like. Now, could it be a psyop? Yeah, sure. But what would be the reason to do that? That doesn't even make any sense. Why show people there's hope using the court system to get a lot of this stuff to go away? Doesn't really make any sense to me. But I didn't really look into it that much, so who knows. But, and some people are saying his case got denied, so that's why it's fake or a fraud or something. Well, here's something someone wrote. The case was dismissed because of a technicality. The court ruled that the government didn't provide documents. However, because the subpoena wasn't served properly, they weren't compelled to do so. To subpoena a government official, it must be signed off by a judge and not a justice of the peace. A justice of the peace does not have the jurisdiction, and that is a procedural error that Pat King had made but was later corrected. So yeah, and there's no direct evidence that what he was doing led to Alberta doing this. It could have been some other reason, but I can't think of any other reason, and I don't know of any other reason why they would do this, because this goes against everything they were doing. But here's Patrick King talk a little bit about how they did get him on a technicality, but that he's continuing on.
Because I figured the law, the Constitution that we supposedly have, and the Charter of Rights that is illegal too as well, would help me in this case. And I figured that exercising my rights was what I should do, and I found out that it didn't. But what I did do was I set the groundwork for the rest of Canada. I set the groundwork for everybody else to follow in my footsteps. Now, not only did I do that, I also left my room, and I said this once already before you guys got here, I've left my room for an appeal. So we're not done.
And talking a bit more about people who are like, oh, I don't know about this. Here's something else someone wrote that I thought was pretty good. It appears there was no legal ruling won by Pat King in Alberta. He just got them and the judge to acknowledge that they don't have a virus isolate. But at the end of the day, the case was lost. He still had to pay his fine and his subpoena was quashed. However, the Alberta officials served him with notice of court date invalidly and against procedural rules. My understanding from the video is that he will be appealing the ruling on those grounds. He appeared confident that his ticket would be dismissed. Secondly, the lack of a viral isolate provided to substantiate the state's enactment of COVID's health restrictions and regulations is on record. Their admission to a lack of evidence in a judicial proceeding constitutes precedence and stands. A state has been forced to admit fraud in enactment of arbitrary rules and mandates. The lack of evidence was acknowledged by the Albertan and Queen's attorneys. Thirdly, search the web. Restrictions throughout Alberta are due to be lifted around the middle of August. I've seen August 14th and 15th mentions. All COVID restrictions are to be lifted, much to Ottawa's dismay. Lastly, King has kits prepared for all Albertans to fight any COVID tickets given to them and will be making his transcripts and legal papers available online to anyone in the world. So yeah, there's lots of details around all this, and whether or not like what he did made that happen in Alberta, it's still good to see people doing that kind of stuff. And what else would have caused them to do that? I don't know of anything else. And the fact that, you know, some of these things, like he actually, they turned down his court case or whatever, that's still, they did admit that they have no proof COVID exists. So there's lots of stuff to build off here at the very least. And like I was saying before, I think people on our sort of side, so to speak, people who like what I talk about in these videos, we're too quick to attack almost anybody. And I know why, because we've been attacked by almost everybody. And there's been so many psyops and false flags, but there's something about being too jaded. Like, don't get too jaded that you won't even look at anything. You're like, that's a psyop. And I hear it all the time about everybody, myself, everybody. I'm a psyop, everyone's a psyop. It's like, I don't say anyone's a psyop unless I pretty much have a lot of justification and proof for it. If someone just goes, it's a psyop, it's like, why do you say that? Oh, it's a psyop. It's like, well, if you don't have any reason for it, it's not a psyop. But, you know, that's how, it's getting crazy. Everything's getting crazy. But I don't know, it's pretty, we'll see what happens. So they still haven't actually removed the restrictions. That's supposed to happen like next week. Gotta wait one more week, you know, one more week of a little bit of, you know, killing a few more businesses. And then they'll remove them. And we'll see what happens. Maybe some of this will get overturned or whatever. But even the Canadian federal government is pretty angry about it, which is pretty great. Federal Health Minister sends letter to Alberta counterpart asking for scientific reasoning behind lifting COVID restrictions. In a letter to Alberta Health Minister Tyler Shandro, Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu said she agrees with the Canadian Pediatric Society's description of the province's move as an unnecessary and risky gamble. Shandro declined to comment on Hajdu's letter Thursday, but criticized the federal minister on social media. Minister Hajdu noticeably neglected to write a letter to Saskatchewan despite us having similar approaches to the COVID pandemic. Instead, Ms. Hajdu chose to target Alberta, the Trudeau Liberals' favorite punching bag. He wrote before condemning the federal government's track record on addressing COVID. Shandro said Hinshaw and her team's recommendations to lift health measures are in line with science. And that's kind of the thing I wanted to mention earlier too. When Hinshaw was talking about, okay, we're removing all the restrictions, she never really said like anything like I would have said. There's no proof COVID exists. The CDC has no proof it exists. WHO, the tests they use aren't even tests. The CDC already admitted to that. The vaccines aren't vaccines. They modify your genetic material, and tons of people are getting sick from it. Plus, here's about 1,000 charts of when they used mask mandates and how everyone got sick afterwards, because that actually makes you sick. And Texas and Florida have been doing this for like a year, and there's no problems there. So that's why Dina, I'll try to talk to her, Dina Hinshaw, will remove all the COVID restrictions as of August 15. But no, she's totally brain dead. She's probably scared, like in her head. She's like, oh God, I hope I don't go to jail for all this stuff I did for the last year and a half. And she's actually getting attacked by all her supporters now, which is hilarious. So all the people who know the truth about all this don't like her, and now all her supporters don't even like her. Oh, this is great. You know, there can be good things that happen. I know a lot of us forget that because it's very rare. But there can be. And if we ever lose complete hope that nothing good can ever happen, then nothing good will probably ever happen. Because a lot of it is taking action, and also your energy and your belief actually affects other things. It affects the entire world, actually. So if everyone who's sort of like us goes, there's no hope, then there's pretty much no hope. If a lot of us have hope, there's still hope. So it's just funny to see how people react to these things. And now here's the Alberta Premier. We're almost done here. I know a lot of people are like, okay, that's enough with Alberta, Jeff. It's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it either. But here's the Alberta Premier says he won't take a lecture from the federal health minister on managing COVID measures. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, and this is the guy, by the way, who his order followers, the crime gang called the police, that he kind of oversees, have been going around and kidnapping pastors and preachers at churches, not at any mosques or anything, just at churches, and under the COVID laws. And all of a sudden he's saying this, like a huge flip-flop. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says he won't take lectures from Federal Health Minister Patty Hadju on how to handle COVID. We're not going to take lectures from Minister Hadju, particularly when it appears that she and her boss, Justin Trudeau, are hell-bent on a federal election campaign, Kenney said Friday at a news conference. If they really are that concerned about COVID, then why is she getting ready to put up campaign signs? Kenney went on to describe Hadju's letter as a political ploy and criticized her handling of COVID in the early days of the pandemic. Oh, these politicians and government people. like all they said there was that they think they're attacking Alberta because of politics. And then the Alberta Premier said, instead of saying all those things I just said about the truth, the facts, said none of it. He said, oh, they're running for election, so that's why they're doing this to us. It's like, just say what I said. But who knows, man? This is crazy. Fucking politicians, they just destroy everything all the time. That's what they do. But anyway, people still listen to them, so. So apparently if you are in Alberta though, and you've gotten like a ticket, and if you watch these videos, you probably have, because you probably haven't worn masks, you probably haven't social distance, you've probably spoken out against the lockdowns and the jab and all that. So you probably have. Here's something someone wrote. They made a point in Patrick's case to reference the Rook versus Alberta case where they summoned everybody who violated any of the COVID's rules. They wait determination on thousands of tickets and summons. Patrick laid the foundation for every one of these court cases to go the way Patrick's court case went. What needs to be done is everybody file a challenge against public health acts in your province, state, where you are located. The judge has no recourse but to subpoena government officials responsible for this. This way we get them all on the stand. Yeah, Patrick King. Sometimes the most unlikely heroes turn out to be the most heroic. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. It's just amazing to watch this all in real time. And like I said, the more people who do things like Patrick King was doing, the better chance we have to like really get rid of a lot of these things and a lot of these people. Like, this is one of the biggest frauds ever done. And, you know, in a way I'll be a little sad because, you know, I actually think they really lie about the vaccine numbers. The more I think about it, because like no one even went to that vaccine center in Australia the entire day. I've seen other images of vaccine centers in Australia over the last year, always empty. But they're like, oh, it's like, you know, 20%, or in other places like 50%. I don't think so. So I think they've only managed to jab maybe like in places like the US and UK and all that, maybe 10 or 20%. And, you know, I think if you're going to genocide all the worst people, it's got to be a little higher than that, like 50, 60, 70%. So I'll be a little sad if that ends, but I'll be happy that all this crap ends, and that what I'll be happy about is that truth wins, justice wins, freedom exists again for most people. That's what I'll really be happy about. But we'll see. It's a long ways from being over, but very, like I said in the last video, there's a lot of negative stuff in that one. This one's all mostly positive, and just, you know, share this video with people, especially people in Canada. You know, they'll really understand a lot of this because they know Alberta and all that, and get them to all file stuff. Like, just fill up their carts with filings. Why not? Like, I personally never get involved in that stuff. To me, the government is just like a evil terrorist criminal. That's all it is to me. So people are like, why don't you go to his court and go dispute him? It's like, I want nothing to do with the guy. But if you don't mind doing those sort of things, that's one way. Just everyone just filing stuff just non-stop. Anyway, so it's going to be interesting. I said it's going to be interesting. And seeing a lot of the sports ball games now, it's mostly full crowds again, even in Canada. Like, I think they're losing the narrative. Oh, so here's the negative thing. So what's probably going to happen is in the fall, either the vaccinated will start getting sick in droves, and they will put people into fear enough that they'll think it is a new variant, and then they'll, like, everything we saw for the last year and a half times 10. As Kill Gates said, this should get your attention this time.
Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, they took their experience and actually prepared, and so they moved a lot faster. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
So the real key is to, if you really don't want that to happen, to push as hard as you can right now. You got a couple months before all that stuff happens. And if we can get this information out to enough people, then when they try to do this in the fall or winter, or maybe they put more like poison in the vaccines in the winter and just try to do their genocide, which I'm actually in favor of. But if you don't want that to happen, then just try to spread this information. We got a few months here. Just, even when you're out at a party or something, just talk to people and don't get in their face, but just kind of mention or ask them, what's the actual death rate of that COVID? And they'll go, I don't know, what is it, 50%? No, it's like 0.002%. It's weird they would lock everything down for that, right? Oh, and that's the other thing I don't like about what some of the stuff they're talking about with this is, like even Patrick King, I think, said, you don't have proof this exists to shut down anything. And that's actually a dangerous, slippery slope. I would say you don't have any legitimacy to ever shut down like a massive amount of the population for any reason. I don't care what reason. And that's where they're going to get people on the next one, is they might back down on some of this stuff right now and go, okay, you caught us on this one. But we do still, basically we've got most of the people agreeing, we do have this right if we deem it necessary. So maybe the next one, and the next one's going to look a lot more real, because it's going to be a lot more real. It's going to be the vaccine deaths. So it's still going to be pretty crazy, even, and most people still don't know what's going on. So there's probably not much we can do to change that. So I would just get out. We're moving ahead as quick as possible at our place in Mexico here. Might even do one in El Salvador, by the way, on right near Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, like a little development, because a lot of people want that kind of stuff. But just subscribe to our stuff. We give you so much info on how to, do well and live more freely. And, if you can do well so you have some capital and you know how to live more freely, and that's like having second passports and different residencies and being a perpetual traveler and prior taxpayer. These are all things that you can do. And then making some capital, and the cryptos are taking off. We think this fall or autumn that it's going to do incredibly well. And if it does, it's going to be a lot of happy people. I still get like an email almost every day about someone who made a fortune. I mean fortune, like millions of dollars. And they were broke before. Like they put $1,000 in. Like it went up 30,000% on Pirate Chain. It's around $3 right now. And actually, I'll give you guys an inside tip. The Crypto Vigilante guys just said it looks like it's going to $15 in the next 1 to 2 months. That's, I think, what they said. So 5 times gain in the next 1 to 2 months. And these guys are almost always right, just so you know. So there's some free advice to you if you don't want to sign up to our stuff. But if you do, dollarvigilante.com/subscribe. And I'll just finish by saying this. There's a movie called Tiptoe to Tyranny that I mentioned before, and a number of viewers actually took action and actually donated some money to it. And it's almost done. It's being done by a friend of mine, Chris Harrigan. And he's been having all kinds of problems. I don't know what's going on. Maybe health problems or something. I don't know. But he's talking about how he wants to get this done before he's gone. And he's talking about getting it out in the next month or two. So I don't know what's going on. But he's just moving as fast as he can. And he used to have a GoFundMe page. And of course, they took it down. They deleted it. So he made another one. So if you want, you can go and try to donate there, or maybe they'll have some info on that page how you can donate crypto. He only needs like $20,000 or $30,000, I think, to finish up everything. He's going to try to get on Netflix. It might. You can kind of get some stuff on those things, but as soon as the powers that be find out about it, and as soon as it has a lot of views, then it'll be taken down. But by then it'll already have been seen by a lot of people. And the cool thing about this, this basically movie or documentary, I don't know what you call it, is he recorded all the interviews pretty much at Anarchapulco for the last 3 years. And a lot of these interviews were well before, like even 4 years ago, I think. And they're all totally relate. They all pertain to exactly what's going on today. It's like we all predicted it. It's people like Max Egan and Dan Dix and Del Bigtree. And we were all saying, this is coming. And we even said, Del was saying this. This is like 3 years ago. He was saying, the pharmaceutical industrial complex are going to mandate vaccines, all this kind of stuff. And then G.R. Griffin was they're this close to like complete tyranny now. And this is all before the COVIDs, but the actual movie is basically about the COVIDs, which is kind of funny. I don't know if you'll actually say in the movie that all this stuff was recorded before COVIDs, but we basically knew what was happening. And that's pretty much what I've been talking about here and at the Dollar Vigilante for more than 10 years. What's coming? And we predicted it all pretty much exactly. And so I'm going to play that at the end here, a little preview trailer for it. And if you got, you made some money on Pirate or something, you want to donate $20, $50. If you made $1 million, why don't you donate like $500, $1,000, right? Get these things done. That's another thing you can do to make things happen. So I think I'll leave it there. I've got a wheelbarrow full of beer cans. Yeah, I can smell it. Look, that's a taco tray that's overturned there. Looks like they finished them up, so I'm just checking, making sure. But some of these construction guys might have some tacos, but I know we got some back at the house, so I found something there. I'm gonna eat that, so come on, Lucy. We got better stuff at the house. Vamos, Lucy. Lucy, we got good tacos at the house. Lucy, vamos. Okay, yeah. Maybe one more sniff. Lucy, we got really good tacos. They're like way better than the street, on the street, old tacos. Lucy. I'm gonna carry you. You can't say none of tacos, can you, Lucy? Well, you know me, it's kind of what I do. But anyway, why don't we go inside and get some fresh tacos, and I'll give everyone cash. Oh, looks like we got some chicken tacos today. You know that's some of my favorites. Go ahead, Bruce. Oh, there's some more for me. Oh yeah, we got lots, Bruce. This is really good. This is better than those old street tacos. You were right on that one. But you know me, I can never say no to a taco. We're giving cash.
For the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
This will be the new normal until a vaccine is developed.
Have you identified yourself as a police officer? Been in a gathering above 5 people?
Actually, you guys are the ones gathering with me.
What did I do? What did I do?
This time is so important in what's happening to humanity, and we really have to put down the fear and realise that the choice is ours to make. A lot of people aren't seeing that, they're waiting to be saved, and I think that's a big problem.
Because of brainwashing and programming, most people just are incapable of even seeing the truth.
As the state power grows, individual liberties shrink, always supposedly for our own good, of course. They know that the more people are afraid of these threats, the more willing they are to give up their liberty in the name of protection against these threats.
This is a new normal that is being caused by the pharmaceutical industry, and science all around the world is proving it. It's the regulatory agencies that are creating this lie, and the doctors are buying it. I think it's more like a religion.
The deep state is comprised of individuals who have an unusual amount of leverage with the public state. They are guided and directed in their policy by unnamed people who are able to leverage their power inside the public state. That's the deep state. These are highly corrupt individuals who now have complete control over the apparatus of the state.
In everything we're doing, we're failing to factor into the equation the reality that this world is run by criminals who are going to attempt to change everything that you do and co-opt it and find a means of controlling it.
We have reached a point where the size and reach of government control over our lives is extreme. We are on the rapid path to totalitarianism.
The government's track record, you just look at their past, it's like an exponential growth of tyranny.
There's new systems coming in, like a social crediting system that is coming online. It's already online in China, whereby they will penalise what you can and cannot buy depending on what your political views are.
There's a constant battle between good technology, positive technology, which by that I mean that serves the people, empowers, it's frees people, it's not invasive, and the bad technology, which is typically in the hands of government and sometimes private actors, that's invasive, it's destructive, it's violating privacy, violating individual liberties. A lot of people are realizing they've been lied to, they're being manipulated, they're recognizing this coming from the government, they're recognizing this coming from the media, and they're getting sick and tired of it, and they're looking to alternative sources for information.
All right, guys, I'm live streaming this right now, so please say hi to the world, Vancouver.
As the resistance is growing, so too are they scrambling right now to try to deal with this awakening that is happening.
The deep state is able to prevail because it specializes in the politics of divide and rule.
You will see people actually really getting angry and really fighting those of us who are trying to wake people up. But there's more and more people waking up, and there's going to have to be a tipping point at some point.
Almost 4 months into the vaccination effort, providers are beginning to run out of people who want to be immunized.
We see the corruption. We know the corruption. We feel the corruption. Our communities suffer as a result of their corruption.
It's time for people to really step up to the plate with this and realize that we have to start embracing this ourselves, and we have to be the ones that are pushing in the direction that we want.
If people actually understood what's going on in the world, they would take back the power to themselves again.
If those that condemn you for being concerned about our direction could glimpse the future of our present course, they might reconsider their treatment of you.
I still believe that the people have the power.
We can do it. That's the important thing.
I see an uprising, and I see the people standing up until the government bows, because the people are never going to bow to you.